Procurement is a multidisciplinary function. It is a function that spans an entire cycle, starting from the determination of the need into the tender call. There are 10 stages with procurement cycle. We'll be hearing much more of that later on as we go along. To me, the fundamental difference between procuring in private entities and procuring in public entities, for fear of belaboring the point, is that at the end of the day, if you're in a private company spending private funds, you can exercise your discretion in any manner as you see fit. In a public enterprise, however, you are spending public funds, and therefore there ought to be appropriate mandates for accountability so that the taxpayer can appreciate, how his money is being spent, why it's being spent in a particular way. Public procurement law, really as it develops, is not only for the government sector, because as privately held companies transition from a more closely held basis where the shareholder and directors are basically the same into publicly listed companies, you then have a very similar situation with the shareholder being far removed from the day-to-day operations of the business. Certainly, in that circumstance, the shareholder ought to know that there are things in place to ensure that the shareholder gets value for money when the directors and the management of the publicly listed company makes decisions with regard to the funds. The question that one would ask is, if there is no overarching statutory framework, does procurement law in the Caribbean really exist? I mean, is there any law that we can point to that if we do this, this is the consequence to us from a legal standpoint? You see private law developing to provide unique solutions in respect of procurement law. And how do we marry the mandate for transparency that comes out of these kinds of regulations with the need for commercial confidentiality and also national security confidentiality? Very interesting area. Also a strong grasp of anti-corruption legislation, integrity in public life legislation, is very important for the student or practitioner of procurement law. So that what you would see, and criminal law therefore, and I started and those of you who know me would know that, I started as a criminal defense attorney, and through my involvement with the Piarco airport inquiry, in which arguably was the most extensive procurement fraud inquiry in the English-speaking Caribbean, 1.5 years of work. That is what sensitized me to what is really going on here. So I have really come from it from a criminal perspective, the anti-corruption perspective, the collusion, bidding, bid rigging, that perspective, and built through my research and understanding of it in a broader context. But certainly, what is important to note is that in each of these areas that I've just spoken about, you would have the experts in each of these areas. But what I feel is important is that we have an understanding and appreciation of procurement as a separate and distinct discipline, each of these areas feeding into it.